This explosion of digital information led to the fact that many people say that nowadays we live in a digital age. Now, it has been given many other names. The day and age we live in, for example, the post-industrial society, the fifth contrattive, a very technical term, the information society. We certainly live in an information society. One of my personal mentors, Manuel Castells, calls it the network society, or simply the age of information and communication technology, ICT. That's a very important acronym we will use frequently. ICT for information and communication technology, which refers to these digital technologies. That means that the day and age we live in is characterized by a technology, basically, that we use to change the way we do things. Now, that is nothing new. So, the progress of societies has always been characterized by the technologies that they were able to dominate. For example, go to the beginning, the Stone Age, for example, is characterized by the fact that these early societies were able to use stone technologies. The Bronze Age, the Iron Age. So all of this says that during these periods of human progress, societies were able to take the knowledge that they have, embed it into a physical structure, for example, stone tools or bronze or iron tools, in order to satisfy typical needs that they had. Now, that should sound familiar. Something else that should look familiar is that the periods that these technologies dominated human progress always seem to become shorter. For example, the Stone Age lasted for about 2 million years, the Bronze Age only for 2,000 years, the Iron Age only for 600 years. So I guess you figure what comes next. Yes, we can make a theory out of that, a theory of human progress. We start, for example, in this case of this graph, with the first industrial revolution, which used water wheels to drive, for example, cotton spinning technologies, which led to a huge boost in human productivity and economic productivity and the industrialization of the cotton industry, for example. Then comes the steam engine. The steam engine, for example, led to the locomotive, driven by discoveries in thermodynamics. Then comes electrical engineering, electricity, which led to the electrification of our lives. We were able suddenly to work after dark. It changed completely how human society organized itself. It led to electronic tools that we had, household appliances. That was in the early 1900s. Then came the internal combustion engine and the automobile. When Mr. Benz invented that in the early 1900s, during the late 1900s, it changed completely the way the people moved. Human mobility was turned upside down, and now since the 1970s, information and communication technology, digital, ICT, which is changing the way we are doing things. And as before, very similar, we can of course now draw a line through that and take that away. And this becomes now human progress, right? Again, it goes in discrete jumps, which this time is based on some kind of technologies that change the way society works. That basically means that human progress is in this case driven by technological progress. So this is actually more profound because where's technology? What is technology driven by? We already said that, by the knowledge we have about the world. So we know something about the world, we embed it in our physical structure, and that then changes and defines the stage of human progress. Now, these are very specific technologies. For example, the steam engine, electricity, the automobile and digital technologies. These are very particular technologies. Not all technologies trigger such a surge. There needs to be several characteristics of what we call, these are all called general purpose technologies. One of the characteristics that general purpose technologies have, we already talked about, is that they have an exponential rate of improvement. We talked about that in a previous video. Also, they need to get incredibly cheap. For example, space technology. It's a very important technology, but it is not a general purpose technology in the sense because, well, it got certainly cheaper, but it's not like I can buy myself a spaceship, right? It didn't come down to that level of cheapness. It also needs to be available in almost unlimited supply. For example, atomic energy, a very important technology that changed a lot of things, but enriched uranium is just not available in unlimited supply. It's not like everybody could have some suddenly. So that's another characteristic that characterizes these kind of general purpose technologies that trigger a huge surge in human progress. And last but not least, they need to be applicable to a lot of general purposes. That's why they are called general purpose technologies. For example, X-rays, very important technology that certainly saved a lot of lives, but it cannot be used for many other things than X-raying people's body, or maybe some machines could be X-rays, but that's about it. Whereas, for example, electricity or digital technology can be used for a lot of different general purposes. So when we hit such a technology, and this happens since the beginning of civilization, stone tools, iron tools, bronze tools, water tools, steam tools, electrical tools, combustion tools like the automobile, and now digital tools, this then completely reconfigures, reorganizes the way society works, and that leads to human progress. So now we could look at some empirical data to see, okay, so what is human progress actually empirically? We could say, well, it's, for example, economic growth. And we can see it since the 1780s here that, yes, the economy grew during each of these windows constantly about 80%. And we can see, well, there is also an exponential growth rate. Energy consumption can be used as another indicator of human progress, how much energy we actually also dominate on this planet. And you can also see, well, it increased. We always dominate more energy for the better or for the worse. So yes, there is human progress that fits this theory quite well. We can also see that these periods always become shorter. That means that human progress accelerates. It also implies that while the digital age is the current dominating socio-technological paradigm, it's certainly not the last. New ones are coming, and maybe historians will say we already live in a post-digital age. There might be, I don't know, the age of nanotechnology, biotechnology, of molecular technology, if you wish. The molecular age, where we manipulate molecules, be they alive, genes, for example, or be they dead, nanotechnology. But these are speculations. For we know until now we are still in the digital transformation and struggling with that for now. So this theory of human progress basically has been popularized by an economist called Joseph Alois Schumpeter, and he said basically, now let's go to the theory a little bit, how it works. Well, first of all, you need an underlying scientific paradigm. As I said, you need knowledge about the world. You need to understand something. For example, thermodynamics, you need to understand in order to create the steam engine. Electrical engineering, electricity, you had to understand to invent electrification, right? And this leads then, we embed this knowledge about the world into a physical structure. In the best case, this leads to a general purpose technology, which then has to be rolled out. It has to diffuse through society. We have to lay down a new infrastructure. For example, we have to lay down electrical cables here. Here we have to lay down roads. Here we have to lay down telecommunication networks, and computers, servers have to be installed. We need an infrastructure, and we need supporting sectors. For example, here we need a car industry. In this paradigm, we need electrical power plants. Here we need telecommunication provider, for example, and service provider. Then you need institutions. You need to actually guide this into the right direction, and we will talk more about that in another video lecture. But you have to imagine, at the beginning when the car was introduced, there was no DMV, there were no governmental authorities, there were not even rules on the road. All of this, first of all, had to be created. There was no driver's license. These institutions had to be created. And right now in the digital age, that's what we are still struggling with. We're trying to create regulations that will help us to guide this technology into the direction that we want it to go. And that's actually then what we call social change. Schumpeter himself called it creative destruction. It is creative because it leads to a new kind of society, but it's also destruction because it destroys the way things were done before, right? So he termed this phrase of creative destruction, which happens in these distinct punctuated evolutionary steps.